It's that standard that meant nothing. What is good cause? What is good moral character?
Very arbitrary.
They've eliminated those useless standards, and they've turned them into another useless standard called reasonably likely to be a danger to yourself or others.
Hey, is there a better tool that empowers a woman to defend against an attacker that's bigger and stronger?
Nope.
Well, that's why it's so important for women to learn how to defend themselves with the most effective self-defense tool ever invented. For women, led by women, the Not Me program is designed to help with training, purchasing a gun, and getting a concealed carry permit. And guess what? It is totally free. So, to sign up, go to notmesd.org, notmesd.org. All right, we have a special guest in the house. He kind of got kicked out of his one segment, but he decided to stay. Gary Gibson. Going to talk a little bit about high-capacity mag ban.
You got to do the air quotes when you say that.
Say what?
You do the air quotes when you say that.
Oh, yeah, air quotes. And before the H and after the Y in high capacity. How you doing, Gary?
I am doing great. Thanks for having me back.
I understand you had a pretty exciting week.
Well, it's been a big legal week with regard to gun owners with SB2 and standard capacity magazines.
Wow. Yeah, standard capacity.
There you go.
Well, you understand why I'm saying that, right?
Sure,
But
I do.
I am a big proponent of they control the language through focus groups and poll testing. And they do it with high-capacity magazines. They do it with assault rifles, and they do it with gun violence.
They do
and
it everywhere on everything that they want on their side. They twist the language around, like the border is not open. Yet everybody looks at it and says, well, it's the semantics. It's the way the words they use. Anyway.
Well, Mayorkas says the border's not open.
That's true, too.
I shouldn't believe him.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Everybody should. So how'd the week go? Tell us about
This
it.
was a really interesting week. I've got to do a little background for you so we go through the process again. Remember, this Duncan case is Duncan 2. It's not Duncan 1.
Right.
Duncan 1's already been through this case. And this is the way that things...
Can you give a little recap on Duncan for people that may not be aware of it?
Okay, so here's what happened. Judge Benitez, a district court judge, decides Duncan 1 back in 2019. And he says the California standard, I'll use their language, their high-capacity magazine ban is unconstitutional. And he doesn't grant a stay of his opinion. That's where we got Freedom Week from in 2019.
Right. Everybody.
And then in normal course of business, it goes to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeal. And the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeal assigns 3 judges to hear whether Judge Benitez's ruling was supported or unsupported. They will affirm it or they will reverse it. And then when the ruling doesn't go the way that the Ninth Circuit wants, when the panel supported Judge Benitez, they said, no, we can't do that. We're going to do what's called en banc, which means that instead of 3 judges hearing this, we're going to have 11 judges from our panel hear this. And the Ninth Circuit's got 26, 7, 8, something like that, high 20s number of judges. So an 11-judge panel will hear it en banc. And what they're doing en banc is they're reviewing the 3-judge panel's decision. And so what happened in Duncan 1? En banc reversed the 3-judge panel and reversed Judge Benitez. That was taken up to the Supreme Court, but they held on to it at the Supreme Court because they were deciding Bruin. And then when they decided Bruin, they kicked Duncan back to the Ninth Circuit and said, you guys redecide this consistent with our new opinion in Bruin because we've changed the tests for how you assess firearms regulations. What would have made sense at that point is that the Ninth Circuit en banc would have just redone, done a do-over, or else even send it to the 3-judge panel. But they sent it back to Judge Benitez. And even Judge Benitez says, I don't know why you sent this back to me.
I don't need it.
I already decided that this was unconstitutional and under an easier test. And so why am I getting this for harder? Judge Benitez comes out with his opinion on the 22nd of September of this year. And he grants a 10-day stay. The Ninth Circuit at that point, and again, I'm going deep into the weeds on what I'm reading. The Ninth Circuit was not happy with the motions panel. What's the motions panel? The motions panel is the panel that would have determined whether Judge Benitez's stay would have been longer than 10 days, because he did grant a stay in this case at Bonta's request for 10 days. Okay, you're going to keep this stay in place. The motions panel, from what I understand, had 2 Trump-appointed judges on it. They were not confident at the Ninth Circuit that the stay wasn't going to be vacated and it was going to be open the floodgates. And how would they ever in the future, if they put the genie back in the bottle, how were they ever going to figure out if somebody got their magazine a week from today or after the genie went back in the bottle? And so they said, all right, we can't do this. So what are we going to do? We're going to skip the 3-judge panel again. And we're going to take it en banc. We're not even going to go to that panel because we know how they're going to rule. We know how Benitez has ruled, so they skipped the 3-judge panel. And not only did they skip the 3-judge panel, they skipped the motions panel.
Can they do that?
Under their rules, they can. But they've never done it before. As was pointed out by Judge Bumate, who is a judge on the Ninth Circuit that was a former federal prosecutor in San Diego for 6 years, who said, we've never done this before. Why are we skipping the motions panel? They should decide to stay in this case. I get, and you're allowed to take this case en banc. But why are you doing all these behind-the-scenes maneuvers to make this work? What are we doing here? And the en banc panel granted another continuance, but only for 8 days. So the first stay should have been up on the 2nd of October. They granted and extended that until the 10th of October. And then they've taken briefings, and they're going to decide it by the 10th of October, but not the motions panel, not the 3-judge panel, the en banc panel from Duncan 1 that reversed Judge Benitez and the favorable 3-judge panel. And something that I really haven't seen before is Judge Van Dyke wrote a 5-page dissenting opinion for that 1-week continuance, and he lit these guys up. There's supposed to be collegiality, and they've used that collegiality in the Ninth Circuit in order to hide what they're doing, their absolute hatred of the Second Amendment. In fact, in a different case, Judge Van Dyke said, this circuit is 50-0 against the Second Amendment, which was a great line. In the McDougal case, you remember that case where they closed gun stores and said they weren't essential during the pandemic. Geez, I saw people fighting over toilet paper. If anything was essential during the pandemic, it was a gun store. And so he wrote an opinion in that McDougal case where he said, you violated the law, County of Ventura, and guess what? Not only am I going to write the majority opinion, I'm going to write a concurring opinion. It means an agreement with my opinion. Here's why I'm going to put in my concurring opinion. I'm going to put in there to agree with all these people on the en banc panel. They're going to reverse my decision. Here's your opinion for you. And this goes to show you how you can manipulate the law by saying anything, because I've written 2 opinions, one that says you can and one that says you can't. So I've written yours for you. You're welcome. That's actually in.
You're kidding.
No, that's in the opinion. I've never seen anything like it. So he lit these guys up. And let me leave you with this quote. The story of the Second Amendment in this circuit has been a consistent tale of our court versus the Supreme Court and the Constitution. That tale continues today and will continue as long as a number of my colleagues retain the discretion to twist the law and procedure to reach their desired conclusion. As uncomfortable as it is to keep pointing that out, it is important the public keeps being reminded of it.
Whoa.
Dude, that is as confrontational as you get. But he believes that the collegiality is being used to silence people when the overwhelming group of people at the Ninth Circuit are manipulating the law.
So what are the Ninth Circuit? They all fired up again?
Oh, they're all fired up again. It's going to be an interesting en banc panel.
So where is it going to go? So they're going to do on the 10th, they're going to make their decision?
They're going to make the decision on the stay. And now we're off to the races with the appeal. There's a silver lining here. We're not going to the 3-judge panel, which means that time is not existing. So the year that it would have taken, 1.5 years to do that won't happen anymore. So it means that we're likely to get to Supreme Court a year earlier when this en banc panel makes it 51-0 against the Second Amendment.
Right.
Because unless they come to a rapid change in their own personal belief system and postures, they will use the law in order to restrict the Second Amendment.
No, they're not going to change.
Of course not.
They're in too deep.
Well, Judge Van Dyke and Judge Bumate are on the panel. So there's going to be a vigorous dissent from the panel, and I don't know if that'll change their opinion. The fact that the machinations behind the scenes stuff they're doing is being exposed.
Wow.
And in fact, in this 5-page dissent that he wrote, now I'd encourage everybody, if you want to read this stuff, go on CalGuns. CalGuns has a Second Amendment litigation section. All of this stuff is online and up on the CalGuns blog, CalGuns website.
Yeah.
He exposed how there shouldn't have even been an en banc panel in Duncan 1 because they manipulated their own rules to make it happen. They got to it too late. And then they behind the scenes manipulated the appointment of the en banc panel. And that 3 cases shouldn't have been heard en banc, and they only decided to hear the Duncan case en banc, and they let 2 other cases go, including one of them being a death penalty case. And as Judge Van Dyke says, priorities.
Well, who's overseeing
Wow.
these people?
Well, I mean, the only people theoretically overseeing them is the Supreme Court. Once the stay goes against us, and I think they will put the stay in place until the en banc panel finishes, that'll add another year to this, maybe a year and a half before we get back to Supreme Court, maybe. With this, the losers on the stay can take what's called an interlocutory appeal, or they can appeal to the Supreme Court. And they can go through, they can run through individual judges. I think it goes to Justice Kagan first. They could go to Justice Thomas second and ask him to take it to the full court.
Wow.
So it's this fascinating the way this has happened. I got to tell you as a lawyer, but also it distresses me as a lawyer because my entire career has been predicated upon the equal application of law, and that people
For everybody.
leave their personal choices and personal wants behind. They haven't understood yet that they've lost, and they've lost big. And the Second Amendment is something that they don't believe it is, but they're stuck with it, and they need to get on board with that.
Right. Well, it was like, as unfortunate it is for a person to pass away, but when Feinstein passed away.
But that's not going to affect her votes on the future stuff in the Senate.
But isn't that amazing? They actually came out and said it because of the death of Milk and the other gentleman. That's changed her whole attitude about gun ownership.
Right.
Well,
One personal event.
that is not supposed to be that way.
Law's supposed to be the law, but it isn't.
He's the happiest lawyer I think I've ever seen. I mean, this guy really likes what
Always
he
has a
does.
smile. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like a mystery novel, right?
Law is always a mystery.
Isn't it though?
It's like you don't want to see laws and sausage being made. I think
Hey, a lot of companies waste an enormous amount of money on marketing. The design is excellent, the photos are beautiful, and your website looks great, but it's just not getting customers. Why? Because you don't have the words that make people buy. But now you can fix that with Sage Tree. Sage Tree can help you find the words that make it easy for your customer to understand what you do and how to buy from you. Stop wasting money today. Schedule a call. Getting started is easy. Visit sagetree.com and click on the schedule an appointment button. That's sagetree.com and click on that schedule an appointment button right now. All right. We're back with
Yes.
our special guest.
So Gary, I'm hoping. So this whole, the case with the mags and the standard capacity, that we're hopeful.
standard capacity.
Thank you.
Well, I'm not hopeful. I think the Ninth Circuit
Long-term,
will revert
well,
true to form.
long term, though.
I think they're going to extend the stay.
Right.
I think they're going to overrule Judge Benitez, and I think the Supreme Court at some point, hopefully it's still the same Supreme Court,
Right.
steps in.
Yeah. But they're pushing it down the road, hoping that the Supreme Court will change.
Well, that's the goal. There can't be any other goal. They understand. I mean, they're not dumb people.
No.
They read the tea leaves, and they're making intelligent, goal-oriented decisions like everybody else.
Right.
But their goal-oriented decisions don't comport with the law. The problems and disagreements we've had in society with regard to politicization and disingenuous nature, they've washed into the judiciary now. I don't care what side you look at it from.
Right.
And so we're not getting honesty and integrity from the judiciary. And that was mentioned in Judge Van Dyke's complaint that he had. He goes, you are both undermining our ability to work with each other and undermining the way the public looks at us. But I just don't know if they care, because firearms and abortion, the rules go out the window.
Right. Was there any response from the Ninth Circuit?
No, but they wouldn't have responded to that. I mean, the response is going to be an upraised middle finger when they extend the stay for the next year and a half. I mean, that'll be the response to Judge Van Dyke.
Wow, how terrible! But you gotta stay after it though. That's the key.
Well, I am hopeful that the way that things have been exposed for how things have worked inside the Ninth Circuit, that the collegiality, as long as we win, I hope that goes away.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that people are exposed for who they are and what they do and what they say, and they can't get away with manipulating the process because it undermines public trust in the judiciary.
So does the Supreme Court have any power over the Ninth Circuit?
Theoretically, they could review the stay decision once it's made.
Okay. But they couldn't eliminate anybody on the Ninth Circuit?
No.
Yeah.
Well, not unless they hire somebody.
Yeah.
So another hot topic we need to shift over to, SB2.
I got a question for you, Dad.
What's that?
Are you reasonably likely to be a danger to yourself or others?
No.
Well, I don't know. You probably get a difference of opinion in this room.
You think? Ooh.
Ooh,
You think I am?
maybe.
You know what that is?
What is that?
That's the new standard for getting a CCW in California.
Is that the new one?
Uh-huh.
Is that SB2?
That is SB2. They've thrown out good cause. Well, they didn't have much of a choice with that. Supreme Court said you have to throw out good cause.
Yeah. So I've been waiting for what's going to come next.
Well, do you want the bad news on getting a CCW, or do you want the bad news on after you get a CCW?
Ah, I see. So it's ugly either way.
Mm-hmm.
It is. I agree with Jim, though. This is so blatantly unconstitutional, but the problem is not all of it is. Mm-hmm. This is a huge bill touching every aspect of firearms ownership and CCWs.
And the core of what they wanted to do with it, they hid. They presented it as being a safety bill, but they hid the core.
Well, here's the
iceberg
thing.
is
They've
below.
also made it severable. Mm-hmm. Severable means that they could lose a part of it, but the other parts are saved. And so every individual piece of it has to be challenged. Like I think the first lawsuit was May versus Bonta against SB2, and the next one, Colados, is the one that Michael Schwartz is on. It's out of this district. Is Colossus or Colados, one of those two.
I thought there was an R in there somewhere. Yeah.
But that lawsuit that Michael's part of, that's only challenging the sensitive space restrictions, the restrictions on where you can carry. It's not challenging any of the CCW granting restrictions. And so and those two cases have just been joined together with the same judge in the Central District. And he was, McCarty, he's pretty firearms friendly. We didn't get a bad draw on that. So what is SB2? SB2 is the response of the state to Bruin. You heard Jim Miller talk about it in the last segment. He said, Bonta said it's our constitutional response to the Bruin decision. That changes. Smart people write these anti-gun legislation.
Oh, yeah.
And so what they've done is they've almost made it easier to get a CCW with some huge restrictions, but then they've made it impossible for you to carry the gun that you get.
Right. So you can have the paperwork, you just can't carry the
Well,
gun.
you can drive around with it,
Yeah.
but you might not be able to pull into a parking lot,
Right.
but you can drive the streets with it for the most part. In fact, they actually have that in the law, that we don't mean that you can't drive through somewhere with it, but you just can't stop. And so there's going to be a lot of people doing nothing with their CCW other than driving around with their gun.
Right.
And then when they get out, what are they supposed to do? Go to the back of your car before you get to the parking lot and unload it in the middle of the street and put it in
And
your
you're making
trunk?
and everybody's will be illegal in their eyes.
Yes. The whole point of this, I've been doing this a long time as a lawyer. I have to take a slide rule and a calculator to figure out how this thing works.
Right.
Is this right or is this wrong? I can't believe how many questions that I'm going to get if this ever goes into effect. Here's the positive. I don't think it's going to go into effect. They've tried this everywhere else. Other states, it's been found to be unconstitutional and stayed while it's being litigated. I don't know if anybody's finished litigating it yet. I don't think so. But other states have tried this. I think Hawaii, Maryland is the most recent. This week, they got to stay on some of the sensitive space restrictions in the Maryland bill, and that just happened. So this is happening as we're talking. But here's the problem. There are things in this bill that are going to survive. One of the things that's going to survive is they've doubled the amount of training to get a CCW to 16 hours.
Yep.
They've doubled the amount of training for a renewal to 8 hours. And that may not seem like a lot, but they foisted their own pet projects into it. 1 hour of your training now has to be mental health and mental health resources.
Are we mental health professionals to be able to teach that?
Well, it can't be the firearms instructors. They have to bring in mental health professionals.
You're correct.
It's
I
in
do
the
recall
bill.
that. It is.
Yeah.
I do recall that. So what's that going to do to the cost of the course?
It's not just going to double the
How
the
attainable is
cost
that
of
going
the
to be
course.
for people?
Well, take whatever price you're paying now and
Right.
double it.
At least.
Well, they still need the instructors. They still need the time. They still need the space.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the problem. I think the facilities aren't there in our county right now to do it. I mean, they're facility maxed with their CCW classes. I know that some people have been moving Bill McLaren and 2A firearms. They've had to expand to almost doing a CCW class every weekend. But now it's going to be Saturday and Sunday. So when is the 8-hour renewal going on? Who's doing that if they're doing every weekend a CCW class?
Well, they like you said, they're not stupid. They're going to make it as difficult as they can.
And that's what they're doing.
Right.
And we're back to my question. Are you reasonably likely
Right.
to be a danger to yourself or others?
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, we're going to get 3 of your best friends because we're going to talk to them too about whether you're reasonably likely. 3 character references as part of it now. One of them has to be your cohabitant, and one of them has to be a previous cohabitant, boyfriend or girlfriend or partner,
If they're alive.
if possible.
Well, they probably
you got bigger problems than CCW, and we should talk after the show.
But it's so we've had this conversation because the first hour I do is trying to keep the land open, the deserts and Pismo Beach, and we're fighting the government there, and they're doing the same thing that we're doing here. It's just the topic is different. Ours is to go to the desert, enjoy yourself on a motorcycle, or buy a gun and be able to carry it.
And actually get trained, get screened, and then actually be allowed to exercise your constitutional right to defend yourself.
They're two, and I say this all the time, they're taking my money and trying to stop me from doing my Second Amendment right, and I have to defend myself with my money. So it's my money at both ends. I mean, I'm fighting against myself.
Well, I got one more thing for you. I don't know if I'm going to like those posts that you've been putting up about Governor Newsom, because all your public postings now, we're going to use that to determine whether you is reasonably likely you're a danger to yourself or other. You know what? You say a lot of anti-government things.
Yes,
Dave. You say things that make us nervous, so we reasonably believe that you're a danger to yourself,
exactly,
or others.
Well,
and it's that standard that meant nothing. What is good cause? What is good moral character?
Very arbitrary.
They've eliminated those useless standards, and they've turned them into another useless standard called reasonably likely to be a danger to yourself or others.
Can they? But then again, then we hire you, and then you go back to court, and then you.
Well, one of the good things in the bill, it's got an entire section, what happens when they turn you down. They got 90 days to tell you that you're qualified initially, go get your training. And then they got 120 days after you finalize your application with your training certificate and your live scan. 120 days after that, they can turn you down. But it's got a whole process in there. Hey, you go to court. So in that sense, it's actually better than the old process.
So wait, so what you're saying on top of the 90-day background check that we currently already have, there's going to be an additional 120 days?
They have 90 days to tell you or let you take your training.
So, okay, so they're expanding that to 90. Okay, and then from
Then
there.
120 to turn you down.
Gotcha.
And there's so many things written in there. We don't have to do the character letters on a renewal. If the sheriff doesn't want to do it, they don't have to.
Right.
So you're not going to need character on a renewal, but you are going to get theoretically your social media checked. They're going to do public postings that you've been putting online talking about how bad the government is. and
I'm in
how-
good shape because I write it and then I delete it. I find if I
Once
write
it's
it,
out there, Dave, it's out there
You're
forever.
not-
no. I don't hit send.
Oh.
I just write it, feel better, and then delete.
You're not in good shape, Dave. They got a file on you.
Thanks for watching this clip from Gun Owners Radio. If you're watching mainstream media, you're not getting the truth about guns. Gun Owners Radio is the easiest way to stay on top of the Second Amendment fight, the fight for your self-defense rights. You can watch our live stream on YouTube every Sunday from 4 to 6 p.m. California time, or if you're in San Diego, AM 1170, FM 96.1, The Answer. We're also available on your favorite podcast platform. Just search Gun Owners Radio and you'll find our show. Like and subscribe to help defend and restore the Second Amendment, not just in California, but across the country.